and a welcome to both mentees and mentors to Discovering Your Brand, which is essentially a workshop to help students launch their career. So right now, as students and recent graduates, really I consider you being in sort of pre-launch mode, which is essentially sitting in an academic cocoon, going through the academic process where we gain knowledge and skills and training, and at some point we are set to graduate, or perhaps we've recently graduated. In any case, the question really for undergraduates and soon-to-be graduates or graduates is, now what in terms of your career development? And so really, essentially what we're asking ourselves is, okay, what's the next step? What do I do now? So that first step is kind of like walking off a cliff as we move towards a direction or a career path. And so what I've noticed is that there is this incredible gap between learning, where most of you are now, and what we'll call earning. So what I'm trying to do in this workshop is, I guess, bridge that gap by providing students, mentees, and mentors with a set of practical skills to help our students launch their careers. So, okay, we're going to launch our careers. So the first step is to separate ourselves out from the crowd. So you can see this big pack of graduates. You're in there somewhere. So what we want to do in this exercise is learn how to stand out. That's essentially the first step. So, you know, when we look at graduates, we as prospective employers, you've all gone through a learning process, so you all pretty much have the same education, training, and perhaps some have got a little more experience than others, but overall, kind of all in the same boat. Another way of looking at it is looking at these cows. When you look at a group of cows like this, there really isn't any cow that stands out. So if you look carefully at this cow, what we want to do in this exercise is change you from being like everybody else to what I hope you see on the screen is a purple cow. So if you saw a purple cow in a field, naturally you would say, okay, that stands out. So to be a purple cow, which is what we're going to try and achieve in our workshop, is essentially to be unique. And to be unique is the question we need to ask ourselves now is, okay, so what makes you unique? And how we can address that is to focus in on jobs and the job perspective, and particularly what prospective employers or recruiters or HR people are looking for. What are they looking for when they see your resume or talk to you in an interview? And they're looking for a number of things, but the most important thing they're looking for are people who build value. In other words, people that make a difference. So when we're looking at you and how you create value, how do we assess that? So naturally we look at work experience when we look at your resume, but for a lot of us, particularly ones who have just graduated and have not got a lot of field experience, you might have some work experience through a co-op program or some work that you did during the summer season with an employer, but really not a lot of work experience. And what's kind of interesting is we're losing a lot of our skill and knowledge to retirement. So prospective employers and recruiters are not relying so much on work experience. Yes, they look at work experience, but they're looking at growth potential. So in other words, they're looking at new graduates and what is their potential to make a difference and build value in our organization. So the question is, what about you? How do we assess your growth potential? So the way we do that is we look at potential value, right? So you don't have a lot of experience. We can't assess you in the workspace. So how do we see you as somebody who has the potential to be a difference maker in a company? Well, what recruiters use and prospective employers is they have a set of what they term value indicators. And there's a number of value indicators, but there's 4 key ones. And this is really, really important for you to understand that this is what they are looking for. They're looking for people with passion, a strong work ethic, persistence, in other words, the kind of employee that's not going to give up when they're faced with challenges, and people who love to learn. They're always wanting to improve themselves or improve projects. So these are the key value indicators. So anybody that's looking at this probably are thinking, well, I've got these, I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure you do. It's now a question, well, how do we show that we have these? So, okay, if you say you've got these, what does that look like? Well, you don't have a lot of work experience, we need to use other filters. So if you do have a little bit of work experience, fine, we can look at that, and do we see passion and work ethic and persistence and always learning? Might surprise you that what recruiters now use as their primary filter when they look at LinkedIn profiles, which by the way is really the only medium that they use now. Resumes are way too random. So LinkedIn profiles are nicely organized, and so they go right to the volunteer section. So why volunteering? Before a prospective employee starts with an organization, we already have a sense of their commitment, and they're doing it on their own. And anybody I know that does any volunteering, and certainly I'm in that category, we know you've got these value indicators. So we've already got a good sense of how you are going to create value within an organization. The other thing that might surprise a lot of you is recruiters look at activities, leisure activities in particular, and I've tested this myself. So when I mean leisure activities, I'm talking about people that have been involved in music, sports, dance, for example. So I've tested this. So I've hired graduates, new graduates with no experience and 12 years of competitive piano, or 4 years of varsity rowing. I hired a high school student with 10 years of gymnastics. And I hired a geology graduate to do superficial mapping who had 10 years of ballet. Okay, so what is it about that? All of the ones that I hired all went on to have successful careers. Why? They had those value indicators, and if you've been involved in music, sports, or dance, then you know that you come to those activities with these value indicators. So this is why recruiters have a lot of success in assessing somebody's potential value, simply looking at volunteering and leisure activities. So the message I'm giving you now is, on your LinkedIn profile, you want to make sure you have your volunteering activities listed as well as leisure activities. Okay, so now we're saying that leisure, or at least leisure activities and volunteer work tells us that this gives us an insight into your value indicators and essentially tells us that you've got the potential to build value. So we can use work experience, volunteering, and activities. So, okay, how do we put this together? So yeah, okay, so you've got these, but how do we wrap it up nicely? Well, traditionally, we put it into a resume, and that's okay. The challenge that we've got as students who submit resumes is that on average, a recruiter will spend no more than 6 seconds. I mean, they're looking at 150 applicants for a position. They don't have a lot of time. So if they can't see how you have this potential to create value, they're on to the next. Okay, so that's all right. Let's look at how can we be more effective in showing people that we have the potential to create value and make a difference. So in other words, how do we show that we have this potential value? The way we do it is by creating a personal brand. And really that's the underpinnings of this workshop, is we're going to work on creating a personal brand. So the question is, what is a personal brand? Well, one good definition is that it's essentially who you are, what you do, how you do it in a way that creates value. So who you are, what you do, how you do it in a way that creates value. So in other words, we're talking about your uniqueness. We're talking about your value indicators in the context of creating value. So when you wrap those two together, you end up with your personal brand. Okay, so how do we market our personal brand? Well, the most effective way is to create a brand statement. And we're going to be doing that in our exercise today. So, brand statement. Purple Cow brand statement identifies you as distinct from others. So that's what we've been talking about here, is separating you out from the crowd, getting you to stand out. And the way we're going to do this is with a brand statement. So a brand statement, an effective brand statement, is one that gets around the 6-second rule that I've alluded to earlier. So when you're in a conversation with somebody at a networking event, unfortunately, the average attention span of your listener is about 6 seconds. So if you're trying to get a message across to somebody about how great you are and how you would be an ideal employee, you need to be effective in how you do that, and the brand statement is how we're going to do that. So the hallmarks to an effective brand statement are that the statement is engaging, it engages your audience, it piques interest. People are suddenly interested in you, it invokes curiosity, and we can do this in the length of an out-breath. In other words, about 10 words. So an effective brand statement is a very short statement. Some people call it an elevator pitch. It's 10 words or less. So the purpose of the brand statement: show your uniqueness in a way that you create value. Here's the most important part about the brand statement, is when you say your brand statement to somebody, it naturally attracts the right people, the right organizations to your brand. So you end up filtering who you actually want to work for. You want to work for people that like how you create value. Most importantly, when you do networking and you're talking to people and you're presenting you're marketing your brand, you want to get on people's radar screens. You want somebody walking away from a conversation with you and saying, okay, you know what, that was impressive. We might not have a job opening now, but definitely when something comes up, we want to have you at the top of the list. That's the whole idea here, is getting on people's radar screens and getting to the top of the list. So when a job opportunity does arise, who are they going to think of? You. So that's the idea behind this. So, okay, how are we going to create this brand statement for you? Well, the way we do this is we need to take inventory. So we're going to use two oculars to take inventory. We're going to look at how you see yourself, which we don't do that often. And we're also going to look at how others see us. In other words, the feedback that you've gotten from people, whether it be in a volunteering experience, a work experience, or in a leisure activity. So how you see yourself, how others see you, that combination is what your personal brand is all about. Essentially, the brand statement says, this is me and how I create value. Okay, so we're talking about taking inventory, and we're using the two oculars, how we see ourselves and how others see us. So we're going to look at skills, strengths, values, passions, and goals. So when we put all these together, it's in the context of creating value, and we're looking at how you have created value, whether it be in a work experience or volunteering or a leisure activity, how you do right now create value, and how you intend to. So you can imagine yourself down the road, how would you be creating value? And again, we're going to be using, as we go through this inventory process, we're going to be using these contexts to take inventory. So we're going to start with skills, and we're talking not about hard skills. We're not talking about geoscience skills like, okay, you know how to map or you know how to core log. That's okay, but you're competing against people who maybe have got 15, 20 years worth of experience and are looking for work. So and that's not what you're about when we look at your personal brand. You're not the mapper or the core logger. So soft skills are going to be a little different. So a skill, particularly a soft skill, is something that you learn. So not necessarily that something comes naturally, it's something that over time you have learned. So the AIG, I think, sent out these brand worksheets for you to use to write things down. If you don't have one, that's not a problem. Just use a blank piece of paper and a pen, and we're going to get you to focus first on taking inventory with soft skills. So we're going to look at your top 3 soft skills. And I'm going to help you out here a little bit. I'm going to provide you with a list of soft skills that is not the ultimate list. There's possibly skills that are not on this list that you might think about. So I'm going to present some words for you, and what I want you to do is words that jump out are the words that I want you to write down. So these are soft skills that you've learned. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds, and if you don't complete any of the exercises that we're going through, not a problem. On my website, Geodude Corner, all of these lists are there, so you can refer to them if you need to go back. So an example of a learned skill for me is diplomacy, and I learned that in grade 11. Apparently I wasn't very diplomatic when I went to see teachers about my test results. And so my grade 11 teacher taught me about diplomacy. He said, you know, if you wanted me to look at your test results, you needed to be more diplomatic. So that kind of thing. Another word that jumps out for me as a learned skill is balanced. Bit of a workaholic, and so with a family, learned balance over my career. So anyway, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to record your top 3. And again, if you're not able to complete any of these exercises, not a problem. You can definitely go onto Geodude Corner website and find the list of words, and you can still complete the exercise. So when you've got the top 3, what I'd like you to do is put a circle around the one that is most significant. Okay, we're going to move on to strengths. So a strength is like a skill, but it's something that comes naturally to you. So again, on the branch worksheet, it's the B section. Otherwise, use your paper and just mark down strengths, and let's look at the top 3 strengths. So once again, these are sort of skills that come naturally to you. So it turns out it's the same group of words. And again, there might be words that are not on this list that would apply to you, and that's fine. So something that comes naturally to me is work ethic. I think I've been that way ever since grade 3. Always worked hard. Let's see, what else? Punctual, that's another one. So anyway, I'm going to give you 30 seconds to pick out just ones that jump out at you. And again, you might think of ones that are not on this list, and that's absolutely fine. Just mark them down. Mark down 3, and I'm going to get you to circle the one that is most significant. There's quite a few words that actually apply to me, certainly, and perhaps others. So sometimes it's a little difficult to narrow it down to 3, but we're just want those ones that sort of pop out at you. Okay, we're going to move on, and we're going to look at values. So values are principles of what is important to you, and another way of looking at it is things that you're not willing to compromise on. So once again, use your sheet or a blank piece of paper, mark down values, and what I want you to do is from the list that comes up, select the ones that jump out at you, the top 3. So certainly lots jump out for me. Integrity is huge with me. That's a real big one. Work ethic certainly is. Accuracy. I've got an engineering background, so that's pretty important. Anyway, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and again, there might be words that are not on this list, absolutely fine. And you know, after we're finished the workshop, you might revisit this and find some new words that are more applicable to you and your values. What you're seeing here is just a guide, just to sort of get you started. Okay, we're going to move on. So passion. So a passion is a strong feeling of excitement about something. So a passion to me is a combination. So we need to look at what you've done in the volunteer space or an activity or something you've done in the work experience that you really enjoy doing. And what we want to focus on is not so much the activity, we want to focus on the feeling. What happens when you are passionate about something, video games, whatever it might be, what is that feeling? Whatever it is, it's the combination of the experience, be it work experience, volunteering, or leisure activities, and the feeling. So that represents passion. So either use your brand worksheet or a blank piece of paper, and let's look at passion. So identify a passion and what that feeling is. So what I'm going to give you next on the screen are just a selection of words that describe a feeling, like whether it's, you know, you're feeling fired up or motivated, happy, so on and so forth. And again, these words are just a sampling of words that just to sort of get you thinking a little bit about what feeling you might have when you do something that you're passionate about. When I'm not practicing geoscience or guest lecturing, I'm the lighting technician for an Irish dance troupe. So I'm in charge of lighting choreography, and that's a passion of mine. And the feeling I get when I'm able to mix dance, which is essentially a movement, with lighting and making it complementary, it's a feeling of accomplishment. So that's kind of the feeling that I get. So I'll give you a few more seconds to have a look at your selection. So pick top three and let's put a circle around the one that is most significant. Okay, we're going to move on. And finally, is our last piece in the inventory process, is we're going to look at goals. So a goal is an ambition or desired result. And usually we have short-term goals and long-term goals. You know, a short-term goal, if you're an undergraduate, is completing your university experience, or if you're a graduate, it's maybe getting that first job, or maybe if you have a job, you're wanting to expand your experience, getting into mineral exploration rather than working for the Geological Survey, whatever the case may be. Those are short-term goals. Long-term goal is looking 5 years out, and sometimes this is a difficult thing to imagine. And so it doesn't necessarily have to, because it's hard to imagine where we're going to be in 5 years, and that's not the point of the exercise. It's more a focus on what would you be doing 5 years from now to create value. So that could be in a volunteer experience. It could be in a work experience. It doesn't have to be specific, but I want you to just take a short sentence and say, yeah, what would you be doing in 5 years to create value? So I'm just going to give you 30 seconds on this, and you can complete this exercise as homework if you haven't completed it. What would you be doing in 5 years? So 5 years from now, for me, a goal is to be doing a TEDx, to be speaking at a university as a TED Talk. Coming pretty close with that, but that's kind of what I'm aiming at with my guest lecturing. So I'll give you a few more seconds. It's not an easy process to go through because we generally don't take inventory of our skills and values and strengths, passions and goals. But it's really the most effective way of discovering and developing our personal brand. So every effective brand statement begins with an action word. And the importance of that is it implies that you're going to do it, or you have done it, or you intend to do it. So action is the key. And I'm going to get you, I've got here in the worksheet to pick one. Ultimately, your brand statement is going to start with this. So I want you to be thinking about how, have, do, and will I create value. And the words that you're going to see here, I want you to pick, you can pick 3, but I want you to definitely narrow it down to 1. And what happens in interviews nowadays is some HR people, they say, if you could say in 1 word how you could make a difference for our company, what would it be? That's becoming a very standard question, and it's all encompassing in this brand statement. So when I look at these words, there's a lot that apply to me, but there is one that really stands out. And I had to go all the way back to elementary school, to grade 3. And there's a consistency all the way through my academic career and into my working career and to where I am now. That action word is the same. So this is the most important part of your brand statement. It really is the foundation. So your selection of this word is very, very important. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and you can pick 3, but I want you to narrow it down to 1, put a circle around that one. So another way of looking at this is asking yourself, okay, what is it about me that makes a difference? Is it generating, enabling, completing, modeling, organizing, creating, serving? You know, it's, and again, these, the lists are posted on the website, so you can definitely revisit this if you need more time. This is probably the most difficult part of the exercise, is defining yourself in 1 word in the context of building value or making a difference. And I seriously went all the way back to elementary school to start looking at how I have made a difference and how I now do and how I intend to. Okay, we're gonna move on. So we've got an action word, hopefully, or if you're still working on it, that's okay. At some point, you're gonna have an action word. We've now created a group of words around skills, strengths, goals, passions, and values. And they're all in the context of building value. So really, put those together and you have a brand statement. Keeping in mind it's got to be about 10 words or less. So I'm going to show you some examples that are posted on my website, and there's other ones as well. And I work with not only geoscience students, but medical students, law students, hotel management students. So it really is not about you and what you do in your career. It's more about what you do to create value. So here's a third-year geology student at Cornell University. So Hannah's action word is making. So look at the key words in this brand statement that came out of her inventory. Ideas, benefit, people, environment. So making it ideas a reality to benefit people in the environment is what Hannah's all about. She's an environmental geoscience student, and this is the way she's always been. Here's a mining engineering student at the University of British Columbia. So for Mohammed, it's building. Building is what he's all about. He's always been that way. He's always been a builder. And initially he had mining engineering in his brand statement, and he took it out and said, you know what, I'm just more about engineering solutions. So, and the key words to complement building are solutions, learning, and research. Those are the most important things of value, and those are part of his strengths and skills. So it applies to what he has done, what he's doing, and what he wants to do. You know, and he doesn't have a lot of experience, so a lot of it is based on what he wants to do, but he's always been building solutions through learning and research. Here's a third-year mechanical engineering student at the University of Victoria, Jacob. He is using working as his action word. And the key complementary words are together, innovative, solutions. And not only solutions, but quality solutions. Jacob is involved in a co-op program right now, and they absolutely love him. Why? Because he serves this brand statement every day. So he does what he's asked to do, but he's always coming up with innovative quality solutions. Here's a BBA graduate from BCIT, leading creative change to build value for businesses. So her action word is leading. Creative is what Ali Mears is all about. Value and businesses. Her focus is business. So she used this brand statement to get her current job with an LNG company. So this is going to be part of homework. I want you to spend time working on your brand statement. Look at your inventory, go on the website, use it as a guide and a reference for you. We're not going to spend the time right now, but just keep in mind, it needs to be 10 words or less. So the next step, once you've created your brand statement, then what we do is a one-on-one session. So you become mentored by me in terms of not only creating your brand statement, but moving along through your career. So once you've created a brand statement, we need to launch your brand. So with the brand statement, we're going to create some brand products. We're going to create a business card, which I call a brand card. And this is what it's going to look like. It's going to feature your brand statement either on the back of your card or on the front of the card. And we'll get into, in the one-on-one session, we'll get into building that card. So once you've got your brand statement, we'll start creating brand products. So to complement the brand card, we'll be looking at a brand resume and featuring your brand statement right at the top of your resume. So in a stack of 150 resumes, this resume is going to stand out, and the reader is going to get a sense of how this person creates value in 6 seconds or less. I mentioned about LinkedIn as the primary tool for assessing by recruiters and HR people. And so where's our brand statement going to go? Right at the very top of your LinkedIn profile under your name. So recruiters use search engines to seek out how learning how to employ your brand statement with the questions that you've been that are directed your way in the interview. So that's essentially the workshop. Again, I encourage you to go on my website, Geodude Corner. You can find out a little bit more about me, and everything that we talked about today is on the website. The lists are there. Example brands got is a little bit of homework. So you can send me an email. It's p.McAndless, McAndless at telus.net. If you want to set up a Skype call, my Skype address is geodude11. I think the thing that's most important about this is there's no cost to you other than time. So to me, it's a very important investment in time. And so once you've created your brand statement, then yeah, send it to me. And I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to say, so how does it feel to you? And if you're set to go, then we then do a Skype call, and then we launch your brand. Then we get on to building the brand products. So Doug, I'd be happy to entertain any questions that have been sent in.
Thank you, Patrick. That was really good. We did lose a little bit of connection with Patrick around about the last 3 slides, I think. Rather than necessarily going over those slides, if anyone has any questions, can they raise them now by typing in into the question section, and I'll relay the question.
While they're doing that, I don't mind going over the last 3 slides if you want me to. That's not a problem.
Okay, well, why don't you go over the last 3 slides, Patrick, and people can think about their questions while you're doing that.
Absolutely. Okay, so last 3 slides, let's just kind of go back and look at those. So yeah, I talked about once you've created your brand statement, that we're going to then start looking at creating some brand products. We'll put together a brand resume and an effective networking plan. Yeah, so that's essentially it. Did you lose me before those, do you think?
No, no, it was just from then on, Patrick.
Okay, so that's fine. So yeah, really, I just kind of wrap things up. What did I do next? I think I just talked a little bit about whether you're at a conference or an interview. Once you've got your brand statement, what I'll do on a one-on-one session is give the students the tools that they need to be effective in essentially marketing themselves. Yeah, so there's the website, geodudecorner.com, and p.mcandless@telus.net, and there is the Geodude11 Skype address. So it's pretty easy to do. I do this all around the world. Do 3 or 4 Skype calls a day, so it's not a big deal. And I essentially take you through the second workshop, which is launching your brand.
So that's a fantastic offer from Patrick to review your brand as you put it together. I think anyone who's a young graduate should take that offer up, because it's a great idea, and Patrick's got a lot of experience in looking at these things.
Absolutely. Now, and Doug, the other thing I can do is just look at people's resumes. That is all part of the one-on-one session. Is I get people to send me their resumes as well, and we have a look at those, and then we start incorporating a new look for a resume that will make it stand out.
Okay, good. Look, there's a couple of questions come in. So the first one is from Grant Osborne. And he asked the question, why is LinkedIn the most important social media? Patrick?
Okay, so Brad, thanks for that question. That's an outstanding question. LinkedIn is the professional social media platform, and the primary reason it's so successful is it's an outstanding networking tool. So you get a chance to, if you are invited into somebody's LinkedIn, that immediately gives you access to their network. So I encourage everybody to connect with me on LinkedIn, because that connects you with about 5,000 people in the natural resource sector. And so it allows me to introduce you to people and so on and so forth. And LinkedIn is nicely organized into sections. There's a summary section, there's a work experience section, there's a volunteer section, there's an interest, an education section. It just makes it easier to assess somebody's potential, or to get an idea of what the person's all about. I use LinkedIn all the time. I don't even look at resumes. And again, resumes are okay, but everybody's resume is a little different, and there's so many different opinions on how to put a resume together, whereas LinkedIn is just organized in sections, so it's a lot easier to use. So it's become very popular and very useful, not only for recruiters and prospective employers, but for people building their network. The other thing I like about LinkedIn is it gives you an idea of associations that you can follow. So for example, you can follow the AIG LinkedIn. You can, any other kind of, if you're interested in mineral exploration or environmental geoscience, there's associations connected with that, or geochemistry, for example, there's geochemical associations. And the thing is, you follow those associations, and you get a sense of when conferences are coming up, there's job postings, all kinds of things like that. Students also use LinkedIn to track companies. So if you're looking at BHP, for example, you track them on LinkedIn and you gain access to some of their activities and news releases and things like that. So it just allows you to keep on track with what's going on in the industry, and it's also an excellent way to expand your network.
Okay, Patrick, I'd just like to ask an additional question to that. There's been a lot happening in the world lately on Twitter. Is Twitter any use to us in this situation?
Absolutely. Twitter, I think, developed a reputation in the early days of not being very useful, but now companies, big senior mining companies, all have Twitter feeds. So it allows you to keep current with what's going on. So anybody that connects with me on Twitter, and you can get that address on my website, I send out regularly networking tips. And so Twitter is like a news wire. In the early days, not so much, but now it's used professionally. It's used professionally by, I don't know, politicians, companies. Everybody's using it as a way of disseminating information.
Okay, we have another question. This one is from Joshua Silken. And Joshua asks, for your personal brand, how important is resilience for someone looking to work/study internationally? Patrick.
Yeah, Joshua, thanks for that question. Yes, so resiliency is wow, it's it is key. You know, I think our natural resource industries, whether it be oil and gas or the mining industry, are not only challenging as companies, but also for individuals. So, you know, when we're exploring around the world, you're faced with all kinds of challenges, which I see as opportunities, but nonetheless, they are challenges. And yeah, so I think, you know, to face these challenges, I think you have to be very resilient, and working internationally, particularly. I know I worked in West Africa, and the countries that I was working in were under the Napoleonic code, and they just had a different way of doing business, and you know, it required me to work with a lot of challenges to get some very simple things done. So yeah, so the more resiliency you have, I think the better. If somebody had that in their brand statement, I would be paying attention to that, because that tells me something about you and your persistence and ability to face challenges and not give up.
Thanks, Patrick. There is another question. This one is from Danielle Schmand, and she says, thank you so much for the talk. Could you please provide tips on how to use the network on LinkedIn? Lots of connections, but how do you make these meaningful? Patrick?
Yes, Danielle, thanks so much for that. Absolutely right. I mean, there's so many people that ask to connect on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. And I think the most effective way is when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you create a dialogue with them, and then you seek permission to connect with others. That's usually the sort of protocol or polite way of doing it. So let's say, for example, you connect with me, and you say, you know, I've got an interest in geochemistry. Then You might see other people that are in my network that are connected to me and that are involved in geochemistry, and I would then do an intro for you. So then it doesn't become random. Yeah, because it's great to have all these connections, but if you're asking to connect with somebody and they don't know who you are, chances are they're not going to connect. So a good place to start is with me. And then once I find out more about you and your interests, then we start connecting you with people that have got similar geoscience interests and have the experience that will enable you to gain some insight in their career. So I do that quite often through LinkedIn. So I help connect people through LinkedIn.
Thank you, Patrick. That's the end of the questions for the moment. I think I'll just sum up by saying Patrick's given us some homework to do, obviously, and also some follow up that we can do and interact further with him. And I think that's a really very good idea. The AIG Mentoring Program would also like to get some feedback. So if you've got any suggestions or feedback on this webinar, you could send it through to the mentoring program emails.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some feedback, because we're always trying to make sure we connect. And for anyone who's listening who's a mentor, I would welcome a Skype call as well to talk a little bit about that. I've done mentoring with several organizations, professional organizations involved in, like I do the business schools and a number of geoscience or professional organizations, and each of them have got their own little ways of helping mentors out, and I'd be certainly happy to share some of that.
Okay, so we might tie it up there. Thank you very much, Patrick, for your input today. It's been an excellent presentation. We are recording the program, so we will put it up on the AIG website in due course. And I believe we're talking with Patrick about running a similar session a little bit later in the year. So if anybody wants to pass on the information about this session to their friends, we can run another session probably in late October or early November.
Absolutely.
So thanks very much for everyone joining the webinar today, and we'll catch you later.
Great. Thank you, Doug, and thanks everybody for joining me.
Okay. Bye now.